What is up, guys? We are back here to cover yet another week in the crazy world of professional wrestling. There were some newsworthy happenings outside of the ring this week, so we will, of course, touch on that. As always, though, I hope you guys have had a fantastic week, and of course, follow me on Twitter at ASHMANNS and the show at kickashpodcast_. I'm not going to waste too much time. I think I've been saying that a lot lately, but full disclosure, I will be heading to the AEW Dark and Dark Elevation tapings that are once again being held here at the Universal Studios in Orlando. So that's why I'm kind of not cutting it short here today, but maybe not going as in-depth on, like, let's say, Dynamite show, especially since there was so much that happened outside of the week. So we will be getting right into it, and sadly, of course, we had another round of talent cuts. We so far had gotten through the month of April without any releases. Normally, WWE has their annual purge, sad to say, after WrestleMania season is over, and they kind of pushed it back 2 weeks this year for whatever reason. So maybe a little bit of sense of false hope, which sucks, I can't imagine being the talent and just kind of having that fear almost, knowing that time of the year is here, and depending on your status in the company, you're I don't know, it's just got to be a nerve-wracking feeling. But like I said, we will get right into it, and I'll kind of go over the list here really quick and then just dive into a couple that were kind of surprising to me. Malcolm Bivens and Dakota Kai were amongst the group here that were cut. I believe it's a total of 10. I didn't sit down and count it. But I start off with those two because it was reported also that they had made it known to WWE that they were not necessarily looking to renew their contracts after the end of the contract was up. So depending on how much longer they had, it may or may not have been a surprise, but they most likely were already mentally checking out of WWE at that point. Not that you could tell on TV, though. I will say Malcolm Bivens especially, whenever he was on TV, he always had a way of captivating and just kind of grabbing your attention, especially with, backstage segments and, interviews and stuff like that. He's just a good character, so he, in my opinion, will be missed in the NXT world. And Dakota Kai was such a staple, it felt like, for a while in NXT, at least the black and gold brand, and she was one of those where you had a lot of hopes for, right, moving up to... Well, I guess maybe not. We, as fans, have a lot of hopes, in more sense than one, when NXT talent would be called up to Raw or SmackDown, just for many reasons, right? But we, as fans, I know the majority of us out there thought that she could do wonders, on the main roster and really kick ass in the division. So it sucks that they didn't have the same vision for her, but she's one of those where you definitely know she's going to be an asset to an AEW, right? And I have always been one to not hope that everyone goes straight to AEW, because they're already filling up pretty quickly as it is. But the women's roster, I feel, still can add some depth to it, and I would love to see whatever name she's going to be going by, because she did release a statement, essentially just thanking everyone and saying that this isn't the end for her. So thankfully for that, it's kind of confirmation we will be seeing her probably in the near future, since NXT talents, when they're cut and they're still on the NXT roster proper, they of course only have the 30-day non-compete clause built in, as opposed to the 90-day that main roster talent have. So a month flies by nowadays too. You know what I mean? So we'll see her pop up probably sooner rather than later. But it'll be interesting to see if she hits the indie scene first and kind of just picks up some dates there and kind of gets a feel for whatever her new character is going to be, or if she already has that in mind and already has a plan and just kind of wants to get signed somewhere and just kind of plant her feet and kind of go from there. But she did mention, I was referencing her tweet, she did mention that prior to WWE, she was known as Evie, which was a name that she had came up with and created when she started wrestling at the age of 17. So it doesn't appear that she will be going back to that, just with kind of the tone of the tweet itself. So, like I said, it'll be cool to see what happens for her going forward. Another one, though, that I will say I was surprised, but then again, not too surprised when you think of the direction that 2.0 is heading in, and that's Dexter Lumis. He was always a favorite of mine. I just felt like they could do so much with him, and maybe not a main event or WrestleMania type thing, but I just felt like there was something about his look and his character and the way he kind of made you believe, right? Like, he made you believe in his character that he's legit crazy. and he's so artistic too, like the portraits that he would make and things like that. I don't know if you guys follow him on Twitter or especially Instagram, but he does dope paintings and portraits, and he had just recently done one of Vince McMahon sitting at his desk in his office with the big dinosaur head in the background, and was kind of standing in front of the portrait, looked at that, and then gave the camera a thumbs up. So that was kind of his way of addressing his departure. So pretty cool there. But again, for me personally, kind of sour because I was, like I said, a pretty, I'm not gonna say a huge fan of him, but I dug his character. But I think we all kind of got the vibe once the wedding happened, and the wedding, of course, between Dexter and Indy Hartwell. They weren't really doing much with him after that, and like I said, especially with the direction that they're going in with that brand, he kind of didn't fit in. And at this point, I don't necessarily know if he would have fit in on SmackDown or Raw either. You know, I think maybe SmackDown would have been cool to see him on there and kind of, I don't know if bring a little bit of life is the correct phrasing or term for him, but just kind of add something new and different. But definitely wish him the best and to see what he would be doing going forward. He was in Impact prior to WWE, so it'll be cool to see if he goes back to Impact or if he wants to even stick with wrestling or kind of where he goes from there. But the other one that I was kind of surprised about, more so than the remaining group that we have here, was Harlan, or better known as Parker Boudreaux. He was, of course, the I guess backup and muscle for Joe Gacy, but he, more importantly than that, had the look and it was kind of like the mini version of a Brock Lesnar, of course with the addition of many tattoos. But it was dope. Like, he had the look before they, of course, made him shave his head and go into like this, like, not psychotic, but like this like dark monster version almost type dude who doesn't talk and just kind of stands there and gives you this eerie, creepy feeling. But it's sad, you know, like it's kind of perplexing. Like, you look at this guy, and especially, like I said, prior to him shaving his head, he just looked like, of course, like, you know, but the next Brock Lesnar thing, to put that to the side, but he just looked like he could be a star. You know what I mean? He had so many connections in Hollywood. Like, dude has like so many followers and so many like celebrity followers. It's kind of insane when you look at it, and especially like on Instagram when you see how many people comment on his pictures and shit like that. But I definitely don't see this being the end for him, and WWE for that matter as well. But especially going forward, I really think, you know, and again, I hate to go back to AEW here, but I think he would be a good coup for them as a future star and a good project for them, kind of like what they were doing with Wardlow and Hook, of course, in his own version, but just a nice project and a good signing for them. And I think that's one that WWE would regret, because I'm sure they would try to grab him for at least 3 years. If I mean, of course, I don't know how their contracts work, but if I was AEW and I saw him out, you know, free in 30 days or so, then I would definitely see what I had to do to make an offer and see where we can go from there. Because dude, it has money written all over him, and it just looks like a star. And like I said, with his connections too, like, it's just easy money, you know, and an easy way into a lot of different avenues. Especially with him being so young, like, you can literally sculpt him into the badass version that you want him to be. And I just felt like he has so many different possibilities and so many different avenues, like I said. And and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know, something about him just screams star to me. So the fact that they let him go, and there's rumors that they had mentioned that he, not just him, but the kind of excuse that they're giving now is that certain people aren't developing quick enough. So if that was the case, then that's just fucking perplexing to me too, because that's the whole point of NXT 2.0. It's a developmental brand, so you got to give these people time. You know what I mean? You sign them for 3 years, you develop them for 3 years, and if they don't develop in that time, then of course you reevaluate and go from there. But the fact that you just outright cut someone like him, and I don't know, like, granted, we maybe should have seen this coming since he wasn't on NXT for, I think the past 2 weeks or so now, but I don't know, I'm still kind of taken aback by that. The other ones that listed here, to be honest with you, I'm not too familiar on. So I'm just kind of listing them here, just, you know, to give them their due respect. We have Raylan Divine, Persia Parado, Mila Milani, Draco Anthony, Sanjana George, and Paige Prince of Ali. So of course, not to be cliche, but we definitely wish them the best in what they perceive and what they intend to do in the future if they continue in the wrestling world or what have you. But again, not a fun time, if you're in NXT or in WWE right now. It's kind of scary. This may just be the beginning, or hopefully it was just the end. Hopefully this was just going to be the grid that they're going to cut for this year, maybe this time frame. I don't know. You never know in WWE, but again, just best wishes to all involved. But it sucks. Unless you're the Malcolm Bivens and the Dakota Kai's of the world, and you were kind of already planning to head out. And if so, then fuck yeah, and I wish you the best. Speaking of NXT talent, we have a interview that was done by Chris Van Vliet on his Insights interviews that he does, which is always a no pun intended, very insightful interview and format that he has laid out. And it's amazing how quickly the time goes when you watch some of his interviews. So I would definitely recommend checking them out on YouTube as well, because I've said this multiple times in the past, but it's just something different when you can actually watch the people and as opposed to just listening. It's just I feel like you just kind of connect with them more that way. So definitely check it out on YouTube or wherever you can. But he interviewed the former Ember Moon, going by her ring name now as Athena. And it was a pretty extensive interview, so I'm not going to get too deep into it. Like I said, we have a stacked list here, and I'm a little crunched for time since I'm heading to the tapings later on here. But it was newsworthy in the sense of what she had stated at one point in the direction that they were kind of looking for the women's talent to go in, and that in that meeting that they were having, I think they was called like fashion meetings or something to that effect, fashion tips, or almost mandatory meetings that you had to attend. I don't know how frequently, but she said that they were 2-hour meetings that they would have to sit through and be told essentially to dress sexier. And she had mentioned, I don't know the exact wording here, but something to the effect that she wasn't going to wear fishnet booty butt cheek shorts or something like that. And I don't mean to laugh, because it's a serious matter, because she was obviously made uncomfortable by it, but just the phrasing of that, it's almost laughable in this sense, because it's of where it's coming from. And you sit there and preach that, oh, we can't do this and this because we're a PG product, yet you want these women to be dressing sexier. Like, what is that shit? Like, maybe again I have a little bit of bias here for obvious reasons, but completely contradicts the whole movement of the women's evolution and the whole direction of that, and the mindset, and the fact that you're supposed to be taking women's wrestling seriously. And if you're telling these women to dress sexier, then are you telling the men to dress sexier as well? Like, what would that even look like? It's kind of perplexing to me. So I think it's important that, if that is the case, and that I appreciate, her being comfortable enough to address that and to kind of bring it to light. And I don't know what the mindset is with that, and I think it is, again, kind of obvious if you're watching NXT 2.0, which if you aren't, I don't blame you. I myself don't catch it every week, but it's kind of obvious that they're trying to be like, I don't want to say edgier, but maybe a little bit sexier for, again, whatever reason, because it kind of contradicts the direction of the company. So just the fact that they're having meetings about fashion and things like that, that's just kind of weird to me and bizarre. So again, shout out to Athena, and hopefully we see her in AEW here soon, or just, on the indie scene. She, again, is one of those, more so for the women's roster, like I said, for AEW. I think that she would be a good coup. Not saying she's going to be the next, like, breakout star or major star or anything for them, but I think she would be a solid addition to the roster. But yeah, I just wish her the best as well, and just knowing that that's some shit. And again, I definitely recommend that you check it out, because she went through some shit, a lot of back and forth, a lot of apparent broken promises, or just things that weren't completely followed up on or followed through. So it just sucks, someone with as much passion as she has, and it coming to an end for just stupid reasons, and just reasons that she addresses there. It's just, I don't know. I definitely recommend you check it out, and because she gets emotional as well. That's all I was saying. It's nice when you have the chance to visually watch the video as opposed to just listening to it on audio format. You just can connect more, and you can definitely see the passion and just everything that it means to her, the world of wrestling. So definitely check that out if you have some time. Speaking of WWE are planning, or is planning on running more stadium shows in 2023. That apparently is a idea and a direction that Nick Khan is kind of, I guess, leading the charge on. And is, say what you want about it, but I guess I get it. If you have the opportunity, and I think this is what was referenced, if you have the opportunity to sell tickets for 25, 30,000 in a stadium as opposed to just 10, 15, then why not? Depending on, of course, the money you'll be spending for rent and shit like that on the building, which I'm sure they have already figured out. It makes sense, you know what I mean? Like, for me personally, I kind of like the smaller venues because I feel like it's more intimate and you can hear the crowd more, and it's just a more engaged and just more connected feel and vibe. But then again too, when you see the size of some of the stadium shows, it really makes it feel like a big deal, so I can get that as well. So and they had already mentioned that selling out every stadium show isn't really the idea or the point, so I think kind of going in with that mindset too automatically takes the pressure off of it. Like, one of the big things going into WrestleMania was, are they going to be able to sell out both nights? And while you can only do so much, you being WWE, to sell as many tickets as possible, I think you always do have that in the back of your mind, like, we do want to sell as much as possible. But I think if you already go in with the mindset of, we want to sell at least 25, 30K as opposed to it being a quote-unquote sellout, then I think that kind of shifts the mindset too. So I'm down for it. I'm very interested to see which shows they pick to be the stadium shows and where they're going to have these stadium shows at. So I think it'd be cool to see how it plays out. So I'm not necessarily as against it as some people appear to be, but we'll see how it plays out. We apparently will not be having a winner-take-all for the tag team titles anymore. That match was changed on this past SmackDown. Now, full disclosure, I did not see the full episode of SmackDown, but I did see parts of it. Unless which they still have time to do, so I'm not going to get too shitty on it, or what have you, but unless they end up making this a winner-take-all, because let me back up. So they ended up changing the what was the proposed and the almost damn near waiting for the contract to be signed scheduled match of the unification of the tag team titles with the Usos versus RK Bro, which, by the way, Roman Reigns wanted, and it was his idea if we're going storyline wise to begin with. Has now been changed because Roman came out. There was a big catastrophe on SmackDown. Everyone was pissed at everyone. Drew McIntyre came out to help RK Bro. So now, of course, we have to have a 6-man tag match at WWE WrestleMania Backlash. And like I said, unless they now make the stipulation for that match a winner take all, meaning Roman Reigns' titles along with the Usos tag team titles will be on the line versus the tag team titles for RK Bro, then that would make more sense. But if we're just going into this as a regular 6-man tag, then that's a pretty shitty change, you know what I mean? And if I had tickets to the show, I'd be kind of pissed because we were going into the show, to the premium live event, with the possibility of having the unification match for the tag titles main event the show. And to me, that would have been a big deal, and that would have been only right, with the way they had been building the story and everything going into it. It just made sense. So, again, I'm going to wait and kind of hold off too much judgment until we see how next week plays out, because we still have one more show until the premium live event itself. So, I don't know, guys. We'll see how it plays out, like I said, but I'm not... I'm 50-50 on it right now, and until we see if they end up adding that stipulation, I'm not going to be too harsh on it, but we shall see. It is WWE, In other news, Bobby Lashley took a scary fall at one of these shows in the UK tour that the WWE roster is on. There is the video circulating Twitter, which is how we all, of course, were made aware of it. It was such a perfect, as shitty as it is to say, perfect angle, though. Drew McIntyre, it was obviously a match with Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley, and they had reversed the move, and Drew went to run off of the ropes on one side of the ring, and Bobby was about to run on the other side of the ropes directly across from Drew. Drew hit his side first, hit the top rope, which apparently snapped the whole top rope itself, all four sides, of course, leading to Bobby Lashley's side as well, directly across from him. So that instead of Bobby Lashley having the support of the ropes were obviously no longer there. And when Bobby went to brace off of them, he completely took a nasty spill and landed on his neck, or almost landed on his neck. It was just, he, with it being a freak accident, and not being able to brace and prepare and knowing that it's going to happen, he wasn't able to brace himself completely. But you gotta think, with him being such a freak athlete, and again, with all due respect, that he is, and just being essentially just all muscle, it's, I'm sure that definitely had a big save and a big to do in preventing what could have been a serious injury. But just shout out to Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre, for that matter, for being, safe and being okay and being able to continue and finish the match. But speaking of Twitter, and I'm not going to dedicate too much time on that, or on this here, but Ryback, if you guys, and I don't, but for whatever reason, I think some people that I do follow like certain tweets of his, or it pops up on my feed somehow. I'm probably going to end up muting him as I sit here and think about it, but he had a pretty shitty thing to say about Vince McMahon, and I'm not going to dedicate too much time on it here, because that is obviously the only thing that he wants. But my opinion on this, and again, no one really asked for it, but hey, we have a podcast here, and that's, we're all just shooting the breeze, shitting time away, and stuff like that. So it doesn't really matter why you leave a company. At the end of the day, a human being is a human being, and to bring up shit that's happened in the past, and to bring family involved in it, and to end it with a winky face, and that's how he knows what he's doing. It's just disgusting, and it just kind of shows what kind of human being you are, that clicks and likes and articles and for your name to be out there for a day or two, it warrants you saying some shitty things about someone, and some apparent real life stuff that they went through is kind of deplorable in a lot of ways. So I don't know if you guys haven't seen it, and if you're mildly intrigued, I'm again not going to read it out here, because I'm not going to spend any more time on it. But it's just shitty, and I bring that up to kind of remind everyone to be a good human being, and regardless of how things ended, you have the power to control your attitude and to control your destiny going forward. So the fact that someone is still harping on shit from years ago, it's not healthy, and it's a reminder for everyone to let things go, to move the fuck on, and to not be a shitty human being. So there's that. Finishing up on WWE here, though, we did have 2 returns on Raw this past week. One was Asuka, which was a little surprising, but not too surprising, because I think we all were, of course, expecting it at any point now. But we also had the return of Mustafa Ali. He came back during the Miz segment, and the Miz kind of referenced him being away, and kind of referenced like a cute few lines here and there, but I was kind of bummed that they didn't let Ali address it. Or, I mean, obviously, I know they're not going to give him an open mic and be like, here, have your own version of your pipe bomb, right? Which would kind of be dope to see. But at least just kind of maybe indirectly mention it, at least just for it to be not so glaring that, hey, you were gone for X amount of time, you said shit on Twitter, we know you weren't happy, you wanted to leave, and now all of a sudden you're back. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm super happy he's back, as long as he's happy. We don't know what's changed, what's going on, why he's even back on TV, but I just wish they kind of would have at least addressed it. I think it would have been cool, and you maybe could have taken a direction and made an angle out of it and just kind of go from there. But regardless, I'm happy dude is at least back in the ring, because if you follow him on Twitter, Instagram, anything like that, like, he is constantly training, and just, he loves wrestling. So I'm just happy that he's at least able to wrestle and to at least do what he loves, and at least just be doing something, while he's stuck in this contract. So I'm just happy to see him back on TV, and hopefully they do something with him. Moving on to a little bit of AEW news now before we wrap up today's show. We have our main event set for Double or Nothing for this year. That is CM Punk challenging Hangman Adam Page. Sadly, Hangman had COVID snot apparently last week, so we were not able to see him on TV. Definitely hope he is, of course, resting and feeling better, and again, I'm always never one to really say speedy recovery. So just best wishes to you, Hangman, and we hope to see you back when you're feeling better. So we just had Punk after the fantastic FTR match, which again, my opinion, I was kind of hoping it would be the main event, which I obviously know it makes sense why it wasn't, since we ended up getting the ladder match for the TNT title later on in the main event, which again makes sense with it being a title match. But me personally, I would have, my bias, I would have loved to see FTR get that shot, but maybe on a different night. But CM Punk was ringside for the FTR opening match, which again was fucking phenomenal, and I'm actually gonna think about going back and rewatching that again tonight once I get back from the tapings. Just amazing, and it was pretty much a love letter to Brett and Owen, which it was just beautiful. Like, there's a video going around on YouTube that has like a side-by-side comparison of a few of the just spots that they took. Like, it was almost like you could almost lining up perfectly, so I would kind of implore you to check that out too. It's pretty cool to see. But after that match, CM Punk kind of just walked down to the ring. Of course, with Hangman having COVID and not being on the show, there was reports that it was heavily rewritten, which is kind of weird to say for AEW. But of course, with your champ being out, and I'm sure they had a decent segment built into the show that changes your timing for everything, and a lot of other matches and segments obviously are affected from that. So again, no one's fault, but shit happens. But that led to CM Punk just kind of doing an impromptu little promo, and I loved the style that he did it too. He just took the mic, and he said he wasn't going to take up too much of our time, so we can get right back to the action. Just kind of cut a promo and just kind of addressed, and didn't really say anything too crazy or anything nefarious or anything like that. Just addressed the obvious, talked about the match, and kind of set the foundation for it. And I love the way he did it. Like I said, he had the mic, and he was just walking around and just circling the ring with just the cameraman following him, and of course the fans were in the background with him right there. But hit my Lysol bottle there. But yeah, it was just a cool setup, and I just like how they still got Punk on the show for us fans at home for commentary, and for the fans in person. And able to get that promo done to adjust obviously the main event for Double or Nothing, which is one of their biggest pay-per-views of the year. And to kind of just take advantage of the time that they did a lot for, which I'm sure, like I said, it wasn't going to be nearly as long as what they probably originally had planned, but at least a way to get that on the show. So I'm definitely looking forward to Hangman coming back and to see the build that they have for the show, or for the match rather, and what direction they're going to take for the story itself. So definitely interested in that. Couple more things here, like I said before I wrap up. I'm sorry it's a little bit of a shorter show here today, but maybe I'll be able to record a second part regarding the tapings, or at least maybe some notes from tonight's show. We'll see how it goes, if anything newsworthy, or if anything kind of warrants a additional maybe add-on or two-parter. But speaking of Dynamite from this past Wednesday, Sammy Guevara, just, dude, be careful, my dude. Just be careful. That, what was it, version of the inverted, like 630 that he hit off of damn near the top of the ladder, and he pretty much completely missed Scorpio Sky. I think maybe Scorpio was able to get like a little bit of his arm in there to kind of brace the fall, but man, Sammy just landed on his shoulder and his neck. It just made you cringe, it made you just kind of gasp. But he apparently is, I'm sure he was damn sore, but he was apparently okay and okay enough to head to Triple Mania and win the mixed tag titles with Tay Conti. So that should be interesting to see how they address that going forward. But the winner of the match ended up being Scorpio Sky with the ladder match for the TNT title. So part of me is a little surprised, not gonna lie, that they ended up putting the title back on Scorpio, just because with how annoying and hot Sammy has been with this new heel act, and of course with Ty Conti right there, and just kind of feeding off of each other and just being obnoxious and just embracing it. I kind of figured that they would keep the title on that act, and kind of make that a focal point, since it obviously is a TV title. But I'm happy, for Scorpio, because I think he's obviously a super talented talent, and dude deserves TV time and deserves recognition and deserves time. So as much as I am surprised, I'm not going to hate on it. But last thing here before we wrap up, I did want to mention that we will be getting a few Impact talent possibly on next week's show. One is confirmed, and that is your Ring of Honor, well, one of your Ring of Honor women's champions being Diana Purrazzo, facing off against Mercedes Martinez to unify the women's title. I'm a big fan of Deonna Purrazzo, and I'm just super happy she's finally able to make it onto AEW. With all the Impact partnership we had last year, it was just no reason that the women never got involved in that, and especially when Britt was the champion. They're, I think, best friends or very good friends, or at least were friends in the past, so it's just kind of bizarre to me that the women never got a chance to mix it up. So I'm happy she's actually going to be getting some TV time on Dynamite proper, too, and not just kind of thrown on Rampage or like a dark taping. It just on your show that gets the most viewers, and gets the most hype, so definitely excited for that. And the other possible Impact star that we will be getting is W. Morrissey, better known to WWE fans as Big Cass. And with MJF's promo, the ending that he had, and you can't teach that, obviously makes me wonder if we're going to get an Enzo pairing as well. But if not, it's pretty obvious that we're getting W. Morrissey, who has been developing and really progressing very well and just kind of revamping his life and taking a complete 180 in Impact. And so I'm just kind of one of those feel-good stories, too, you know what I mean? I'm happy for the dude. He's been through a lot of shit, personally and outside of the ring, and professionally as well, so I'm just happy he's getting what will be his moment to shine. But for that matter, I'm definitely a fan of Enzo as well, too. He kind of got the shit end of the stick. All the allegations that were made against him ended up being false, at least all the reports that I read, so if it was all just bullshit, then that's fucked up, and dude deserves to live his life and to be as successful as possible. So if that is the case, then I am still an Enzo fan, and I've listened to interviews and shit that he's done since then, and I'm still a fan of his. Dude can talk his ass off. He's very entertaining. So I'm personally looking forward to that, as long as everything that I read is true and checks out correctly. But again, guys, thank you so much for keeping me in your feed and keeping it locked in. I appreciate it so much. Until next time, like I said, if I don't get a Dark Tapings recording out, then I would definitely hit you guys back up next week. Maybe a two-part or a prediction show for WrestleMania Backlash. But we'll see how it goes. But as always, take care, and thank you guys as always.